Whether you're celebrating your 21st birthday or looking in the mirror, wondering where did all the years go, life takes its toll on all of us, some more than others. But we all get wrapped up in the rat race in this board game we call life. So often are we struggling to strive for some sense of success, it's hard to appreciate the time we have left, often realizing it on our deathbed, moments before closing our eyes for the last time. Too often we're raised to work hard and make something with our lives, but rarely are we encouraged to take a step back and enjoy the moment. How often are you asked, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Chances are, someone's asked you that multiple times already. And where some people have a 10-year plan, you're still trying to figure out next year, adding personal pressure to yourself and thinking you're never doing enough. And of all places for me to realize that was none other than Sonic and the Black Knight, specifically his iconic conversation with Merlina.
Merlina, every world has its end. I know that's kind of sad, but that's why we gotta live life to the fullest in the time we have. At least, that's what I figure.
As brief as that was, it lingered in the back of my mind like a catchy tune you can't forget. And as fast as Sonic is, time is always moving faster, something even he can't outrun. But that realization is what makes him who he is, always on the move and yet living for every moment. So relax, kick back, and grab a snack as we discuss why Sonic the Hedgehog is one of life's greatest lessons. So I recently made a video about Shadow the Hedgehog and how he was a prisoner of his own past, showing us that even the strongest people struggle with grief. And if you're curious about that topic, please feel free to check that out when you get the chance. But as easy as it is to dwell in the past, it's even easier to watch life pass you by. As I said earlier, we're raised to work hard and do something with our lives. And of course, that's something many of us want, to know that our lives are significant. Of course, all of us aren't meant to change the world, but we all want to be proud of the life we lived. But in that pursuit of reaching that pinnacle of success to give our lives meaning, it becomes ever more difficult to truly appreciate the time we have left, effectively making everything we do and strive for meaningless. And what I mean is that no matter how hard we work, no matter how much money we make or the career we had, means nothing when death comes knocking. The trophies you earn will collect dust and be thrown away, and your achievements will fade away in obscurity like those before you. But we never think about that as long as we get to our destination, as long as we reach some form of success. And I blame that mindset on social media. 9 times out of 10, the moment you scroll, you'll come across people who seem to have everything put together, having their own clothing line at 16, owning a house at 20, or being a multi-millionaire by the time they hit 25. Of course, it's not impossible to achieve that, but social media makes it look easy to accomplish. So when we don't reach those levels of success by 30, it's hard not to look in the mirror and see a failure staring back. I'm not saying we shouldn't want better for ourselves and live a life we can be proud of, but not at the cost of your own sanity. Especially with a lot of these influencers, financial gurus, and life coaches who tell you how you can reach their status as long as you work hard, manifest your dreams, and buy their $200 course on how to make it big. And though many of us try to ignore that nonsense, it's still disheartening when you hear rich people buying their 4th mansion while you're struggling to pay this month's rent. Of course, it's easier said than done, especially given today's hustle culture in which everyone has to be doing something. And for some reason, everyone's an influencer, personal trainer, model, entrepreneur with 7 businesses. And whether or not they're lying about their accomplishments, it means nothing at the end of the day because their quote-unquote success is no more than a shallow attempt to satisfy their sense of superiority to anyone willing to give them the slightest semblance of attention. And it gets to the point where people are living for others instead of for themselves. That's why Sonic's conversation with Merlina stuck with me, because of how much it applies to our everyday lives. Look, Sonic is by no means a deep philosopher on existentialism in the pursuit of a higher purpose, but his carefree attitude is what keeps him moving forward, while at the same time enjoying every moment of the journey. One example in Sonic X is when Sonic is invited to a presidential party, but rejects the offer because of a promise he made to Helen, a young girl bound to a wheelchair. Prior to this, Helen and her parents struggled pretty heavily, Helen with her disability and her parents having to work themselves to death to keep up with all the medical bills. But with Sonic fulfilling her wish to see an island full of flowers, she was able to see the world well beyond the confines of her wheelchair. What felt like a crippling cage of cruelty became nothing more than a challenge to overcome her limits. And when her parents saw their daughter beam with joy as she told them of her adventure with Sonic, that alone made them want to make major changes to make up for lost time with her. Of course, they still had to work hard to provide for Helen, but not at the cost of a lonely childhood in an empty house. How many times have you heard about kids having to grow up quickly because their parents are too busy to spend time with them due to various circumstances? But regardless of the reasons, it's still taking away those precious moments we take for granted. Moments that we can't get back. But it doesn't only affect children. It affects everyday relationships with family, friends, partners, and even ourselves because we get so obsessed with being overly productive to give our lives some form of purpose. Look, in Sonic Unleashed, when he had to help piece the planet back together after Eggman broke it apart, Sonic used it as an excuse to do some sightseeing. And that's why I think he's often misjudged as being overly cocky, because he doesn't seem to take his goals seriously, like a certain black hedgehog we all know. But it's nothing more than a misconception, because he's always understood the importance of the situations he found himself in, but he knows when to take a step back and slow down for a moment. In Sonic 06, while he's escorting Princess Elise back to the castle, he notices her sad demeanor before taking a detour to a field of flowers. Regardless of how you feel about the game, this scene perfectly expresses Sonic's perspective on life. Think about it. Elise has to keep her powers under control while ruling a country, while also trying to stop a madman from ruling a world through unnatural forces beyond his egocentric comprehension. And that's a lot to deal with all at once. But none of that mattered during that brief moment in the field of flowers. All of her problems, her traumas, her responsibilities lifted off her shoulders and became as light as the petals dancing around her on a gentle breeze. Moments like that help us recenter ourselves, to remind us that it will never feel like we're doing enough if we can't look back and see how much we already accomplished, while maintaining the much needed relationships with our loved ones. Sonic has always focused on the present, not dwelling on the past nor worried about the future, just the here and now. And you can see that in Sonic Frontiers when he's comforting Knuckles' his loneliness, saying that he might be the last of his kind, but he's never alone as long as he has his friends with him. It won't fill that void of his people, but he'll always have his own little family with him. Or when Tails is going through self-doubt, calling himself useless, Sonic is there to remind him of how proud he should be of his past accomplishments, while telling him it's no time like the present to improve himself. Not being shackled by the past, nor being afraid for the future, is a comforting person to be around. Sonic's carefree look on life is probably one of the best ways to keep moving forward as we strive for success. Otherwise, it's just a superficial struggle that sacrifices our sanity to achieve any semblance of a meaningful life. At the end of the day, hustle culture and social media encourages us to make something out of our lives without truly enjoying the moments that make life worth living. But a Sonic who's constantly on the move at breakneck speeds can slow down and appreciate those moments. There's no reason we can't do the same. But what do you think? Have you ever felt like you're running in a non-stop rat race? Or do you feel like hustle culture or social media has no impact on your life's perspective? Tell us what you think in the comments section. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and please, feel free to subscribe and join the conversation. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care.